Hey everybody, I'm Francesca Maxime and this is WiseGirl, and today I wanted to talk a little bit about deep listening. Deep listening sounds like it might be a little too deep, but it's not that complicated. It's just probably not something that we practice as much as we might think we do. And it's one of the things that if we can learn to practice more, might be a way in which we can have more fulfilling relationships with other people. It's not that complicated. Many of the meditation retreats and teachers that I have worked with over the last couple of years have engaged in a practice where you work with another person who is at the retreat and you sort of sit facing one another. And for 4 minutes or 5 minutes, you simply are required to talk, if you're the one who is designated to talk first, while the other person says nothing. They listen to you, they look in your eyes, there's a connection there. You're not supposed to be really fidgeting around or averting your eyes or, paying attention to yourself. You're really sort of tuning into that other person who's talking, and you with your eyes are really tuning into them. And you do that for whatever the predetermined amount of time is, 4 or 5 minutes, and then you just rest in the silence. And then maybe you're invited to share how the experience was for each of you. So how was it for the person who's been talking to be able to share with someone who's tuned in and present in the present moment, attuned to them and whatever it is that they're saying, and have them be able to speak freely about whatever's going on with them. Might be an issue that they've had that's come up, a quandary they have at work, or with a friend or family member they're having issues with, whatever it is that they talked about for those 5 minutes. And then have this person have just listened. What did it feel like to be able to actually say that without having this other person interrupt them, even if it might have been with what this person thought was good advice? And then the other person, who was the one who was listening, can step in and share how it was for them to not be able to speak, not be able to say, well, when that happened to me, I did this or that, or when, you say this, you're, looking this way, or you're making me feel this way, or, I think you should do this, right? The proverbial advice that we so often tend to want to give other people that isn't necessarily invited from the other person, but we somehow think that it's a good idea to give it because we may care about the other person and want them to be well and assume that we have something to share, and perhaps we do, but the idea in this exercise is that we don't share it, that we notice what it is that we feel when we are sitting and holding our feelings and our reactions to this person's talking to us, and noticing what arises within us as a consequence. What arises within us within our body, meaning do we get constricted anywhere or contracted? Do our hearts or our chest feel more tight or hard? Are we losing focus on the other person's talk because somehow we're judging it and feeling like whatever it is that they're saying is frivolous? Are we going into our own storyline and our own minds about, again, what might this mean for me? Or, I've had this experience before and I'm wrestling with it still, so I need to tell this person what I did. How well are we able to just rest in the listening? And then, of course, you reverse it. So this person talks and this person listens, and then you kind of debrief afterwards for a couple of minutes as well. So the question is sort of like, what's the point, right? Why would we do this exercise, and why is it meaningful? Most people who are in human resources will say that one of the main things that any employee wants is to feel valued, to feel like they're contributing with purpose to an organization where they have some kind of overall well-being, that there's an idea that they want to sort of be part of a larger whole, and that they're able to do that. And that the feeling valued part is critical. It's not just the evaluation, if you got, all these on your report card or whatever. It's also about whether or not you feel as though other people who are working with you can tune in and understand and hear your ideas and where you're coming from. And say, okay, well, maybe that's not what we're going to implement right now, but, I appreciate that, or we'll add that to the list or whatever. But that you feel heard. And I think that that's true in our everyday lives, whether it's our husbands and wives or children or friends or other people that we work with or that are in our community or our apartment building or whatever it is that we have as our circumstances, our neighbors. And so one of the gifts that in this season of giving we might want to consider, or I would invite you to consider giving to someone, perhaps particularly around the holiday dinner table as the holidays approach us, is the gift of deep listening. And one of the ways that we can do this without feeling like we're being inauthentic toward ourselves, because clearly we're not going to really sit down with someone at for example, Christmas dinner table or the New Year's Eve cocktail party or whatever and say, now let's practice deep listening. I'll talk for 5 minutes, you listen for 5 minutes. You'll talk for 5 minutes and I'll listen for 5 minutes. It's not probably going to go down like that, right? We're probably going to be the ones who are going to be the deep listener, and we may or may not have an opportunity for someone else to be as tuned in and as attentive and open-eared as we will be intentionally practicing with them. But I think that the practice is one where when we practice the being the listener, that's the part that is I would say more important right now, because a lot of us are more adept at talking. Guilty. But I do try to listen too. So try it. Maybe. See how it goes. And don't feel like you're betraying yourself, right? Like, see it as an exercise. Like some people who are a little more introverted or perhaps a little more giving in nature as a general rule, perhaps even a bit codependent, they might feel like they already do a lot of this. And in many ways they do, but often feel as though they're stuffing their feelings when they do have something to say, and kind of awkward about when and how and what to say and what's appropriate. And so it might come out later in another situation that's unrelated, where there's more anger or frustration about something. Well, rather than get into all of that, maybe part of the practice of the deep listening is to notice what's going on within your own body as we consciously don't make a lot of noise in our verbiage back to the person, but instead we sort of sit there and notice how we feel and what it brings up for us. And then we can kind of meditate on that a little bit later, right? We can kind of contemplate, that was interesting. This came up with me. Because the goal of all of this, of course, is to understand ourselves better, our own minds, how we work without judgment, with tenderness, with compassion. We want to be nice to ourselves throughout this process of self-discovery. Because the more that we understand ourselves, the more that we're able to, I think, be kinder out there in the world and have a life that has greater well-being and happiness for everyone, ourselves included. So I'd invite you to try the deep listening practice over the next couple of weeks, see how it goes, let me know how it goes, and that's it for now. All right, take care.